What's up? We're back with another episode of Beyond the Ballot, episode 110. I'm Nick Irwin, your host, and today I'm talking to my homie Jason Boothe from Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion. Another great conversation like usual with Jason. We're talking about a lot of the stuff going on with the lockdowns, both here in Canada, all over the place. Crazy shit happening with that. Dive into a little bit of Sebastian Junger. Been reading his books lately, and he has some interesting stuff that relates somewhat to everything going on right now. So stay tuned. Enjoy that show. Before we get into that, just got to say thank you to the Beyond the Ballot. Ooh, almost slipped up, called it the old name. To my Beyond the Ballot super supporters from Patreon. That's Dave, Dennis, Chuck, and Maxwell. I really appreciate you guys. You keep the show afloat. The show is also produced not only by myself, but also by Chuck, Dave, and Dennis. You guys, you make the show happen. I really appreciate it. If you want to join them in helping me continue doing the show, making it bigger and better all the time, you can go to patreon.com/beyondtheballot or go beyondtheballot.com. I'd really appreciate it. Now enjoy episode 110. Beyond the Ballot is officially sponsored by Project Sparta. Now's the time to get healthy and in shape. Greg Papanicholas is going to get you there with personalized meal plans, training, group support, and tons of amazing fitness and motivational resources and knowledge, including the Project Sparta Facebook group. You can go to projectspartacoaching.com and learn more about Greg's work and get started on your path to health. In this crazy world we're living in, our health is more important than ever. Get up, start learning, communicating, and training. One of the most important and often neglected things in life is your physical health. Get to projectspartacoaching.com now and get after it. Shout out to Voluntary Apothecary. Voluntary Apothecary is here to fulfill all of your beard care needs. They carry beard oil, mustache wax, beard butter, and more. I only use their beard care products, and I love them. You can check out their amazing products at voluntарyapothecary.com, and listeners of the show can take 10% off your order with code BEYOND at checkout.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?
We're back again with Beyond the Ballot and with the homie Jason Boothe, and this is your first time on Beyond the Ballot, not on my show, formerly known as Enemy of the State Stank Podstash, but it's really not complete unless I have you on the show, buddy. How's it going?
I am, the last few months have been really tough with not working, but things have shifted a little bit, and I'm excited and starting to look a little bit better.
Hell yeah, man. That's good. That's real good. Yeah, it can get fucking depressing sitting at home for sure.
Oh God, dude! Like especially here. Like for those that don't know, I'm in California. Specifically, I'm in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay area. I'm in what's technically the East Bay, but we have like just over like 1.1 million people in my county, and we have like 260 deaths accredited to COVID. But we have like a purple lockdown status, which is like the highest level lockdown.
Sure.
So like my dad and my brother both had birthdays last weekend, and we couldn't go out to eat.
Right.
We couldn't go out and celebrate their birthday at all because of this. That's fucking depressing.
Oh yeah.
Like Thanksgiving we went to my aunt's, and it was like my aunt, my cousin, my dad, my brother, and me.
Mm-hmm.
for Thanksgiving, because that nobody else wanted to come because they're all afraid of this.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Well, I did like seeing a lot of the resistance to that. People saying, it's okay to have more than 10 people, or the yard signs out saying, I won't snitch on my neighbors for having a Thanksgiving gathering. And
oh, yeah.
We're going to dive into a bunch of that today because everyone's getting tired of this. I think it was Reason magazine or Reason Online magazine that put out an article that says pandemics are over when the people decide that they're over, which is pretty interesting too. Once people just say, you know what, it's here, we got to live with it, and it is what it is, then stop listening to the dictates, the mandates, then things kind of start going back to normal a little bit. And people are in some places, and we'll get into that too. But it sounds like California is not too heavy on the resistance, huh?
It depends on where you go in California. California, it's like Washington or Oregon, where you have like that concentrated urban population, which are all cowed, and then outside of that is largely conservative, red state, and people are like, no, fuck this.
Right.
Like, sheriffs in the red part of California, up north where my brother lives, like they came out and made a public statement, like, no, we're not going to enforce this shit.
Right.
The same with his city police. The chief of the city police came out and said, no, we're not enforcing this.
Right.
But like my sheriff is like, if I see more than 10 people, y'all are going to jail.
Bastard.
So,
yeah, the sheriff up here has said that he won't enforce it either. But I know some of the business owners that I know have been pretty cowed from the idea of getting a fine, because businesses around them have gotten fined from the health department. I'm like, just ignore it. Like, if he's not going to enforce it, then he's not going to make you pay the fine either. You know, he's not going to send somebody to pull your license. Like, all this stuff, it's the business license and whatnot when it expires. It's like, does it magically eject you from your business like the driver's license? I don't think so. Just fucking ignore it.
How the health department is full of unelected, hourly paid bureaucrats, and they get to dictate your business being open or not.
It's ridiculous.
And you allow this. And you allow, like, the sheriff is the highest elected official in the county. Like, the sheriff has the most authority in the county, elected, and the sheriff says, no, I'm not going to enforce that. And then the health department, which is full of unelected hourly wage bureaucrats, goes, oh, well, we will.
Right. Yep.
Fuck you.
Yeah, no, it's nonsense. I can get it, like what we were talking about right before we started, and I believe you said it was in Toronto, the Adamson barbecue guy who ignored it and got lots of support. And then there's just like cops, single file line, well, not single file, but shoulder to shoulder, blocking off his barbecue joint and not letting people in. And, you know, at that point, if they're going to do that, it blew my mind to watch the people around that, because they were like having a, you know, one last shebang. Like, there were little signs like, this is the last one, and they had trays of food and stuff like that. And it's like, y'all are just like, you think you're spitting in their face by having a party when they're forcefully closing this business. But look at them. They're lined up single file. And if everyone there who outnumbered them 2 or 3 to 1 was armed and stood in front of them armed and said, all right, you got 10 seconds to get the fuck out of here, because we're going to keep doing this. That could easily peacefully resolve in that way and exert the individual's authority. I don't understand why people aren't doing that. Well,
I have to look up this quote. Hold on, real quick. I looked up this quote. It's from Ben Stone in Sedition, Subversion, Sabotage. He has a good line about civil disobedience not being an act of rebellion, but an act of trying to change the system from the inside.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And while you're looking for that, I'll talk about another idea I had, because I know that people are, you know, loath to get into violent conflict with the police, no matter what your political leaning is. I made a post the other day talking about how people, you know, they're building guillotines in front of City Hall and stuff. And of course, no one ever uses them. They just fucking leave them there, or they take them home and it's scrap wood. And it's just like, well, tar and feather them, because then you're not really violent, and you know, it gets the point across. Okay,
civil disobedience is not an act of revolution, rebellion, or anarchism, Civil disobedience is an intentional, usually peaceful breaking of a law to demonstrate resistance not to the government itself, but resistance to that specific law while remaining obedient to the overall concept of government. As such, most modern governments recognize civil disobedience as a rightful method to redress a specific grievance. Oftentimes in court cases, the civil disobedience does not face the same punishment as someone who would normally break the same law. So keep in mind, no matter what the intent of the activist, civil disobedience is considered in the same category as voting, petitioning, sending letters to politicians, and marching in a protest.
That's interesting. I don't think I can disagree either. I'm for most civil disobedience, but lately with all the shit that we've had in the last year, it's not doing anything, obviously. So I don't know. It doesn't seem effective.
Well, look at the march back January 20th in Virginia, right? They have this protest every year, right? This is a regular protest, January 20th, Virginia, and like this year they had like 20,000 people show. Like there was a guy open carrying a Barrett, Barrett 50 caliber BMG, right? All this stuff, right? Thousands and thousands of people open carrying firearms, and every single firearm except the assault weapons ban was passed.
Yep. That's nonsense.
So they changed nothing.
No. And I guess I just don't get it. I don't understand why people are willing to sit there when the cops are ringed around a building, stopping people from going in and do their little civil disobedience thing and not think about the fact that the cops are saying we are forcefully not allowing you to do this. And the people are saying we want to do this, and so we're not going to do it. Like what are they doing? Why would you not say I'm not going to allow you to stop me from doing this?
Well, most people are afraid. Most people believe themselves to be, law abiding, right? Like the terms outlaw, lawbreaker, anarchist, whatever. They have a negative incantation to them, and most people are, they don't govern themselves. They're governed by people's perception of them, right? Especially when it comes to like social clout or social currency, as I've been referring to it. And these people that they go out there and they're like, oh no, leave this barbecue business alone. Right. So they get that social clout, that social currency of being out there and being, look, I'm standing for this person's rights. And then the police come and they're like, hold on, I don't want to be arrested. I'm just going to step aside. You guys do your thing.
Right.
I tried. I really tried. I swear I did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredibly disappointing.
And I know this restaurant was in Canada. Canada has a different freedom culture than the United States has, but it's the same propagandized, indoctrinated system that we have. They're just a little further along the line. Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting watching, I guess we could have more poignant examples talking about, what was it? You said in Colorado, like 36 businesses forming an alliance to not 65 businesses. Yeah. Coming together and saying they're not going to follow the mandates, and stuff like that is in turn leading governors, sheriffs, police, whatever, to say, well, we're not going to enforce it then. We're not going to enforce this stuff if people are resisting it. And it's interesting because, like you said, the idea of being an outlaw and whatnot is not as attractive as we would hope it would be, but I think it's growing in that. I think there's a lot more normies, boomer memes and stuff with outlaw and lawbreaker popping up in being relevant to resisting, COVID mandates, COVID lockdowns.
Well, fear is the fight or flight instinct, right? That is our most basic primal instinct, is fear. When you can trigger a person's fear, when you can control a person's emotions, you can dictate their actions. Right. And that's what the government and those that control the government are really, really good at, especially when you realize that sensationalism pays and the truth rarely pays.
Right.
right? That's why the media sensationalizes stories, because they're a for-profit business. So when you combined the fear propaganda and the government's desire to control, and you intertwine those, such as we know that the media is controlled by what, like 5 or 6 corporations,
Right.
and they all have ties to the White House. You can control a large swath of the population through that fear, and then through the social through the social normalcy bias, and people not wanting to be kicked out of the herd, or be dismissed from the herd, or whatever term you want to use. People will go along to get along. So that's what helps create these lockdowns. Is like these small businesses. Most of these small businesses don't want to close. Most people, in reality, don't believe that this pandemic is scary, but there's that vocal minority, and that vocal minority, they'll call people racist or traitors, or you just want grandma to die, and all this other stuff. And people buy into that propaganda. It's not necessarily an indoctrination, but it triggers a fear response. Like, oh my God, they said this thing about me. I guess I better toe the line because I don't want to be known as that person. I have to prove that person wrong.
Right.
You just want grandma to die. Well, I don't want grandma to die, so I guess I have to go along so people stop saying that to me.
It just doesn't make any sense either, not let people handle it according to what they see fit, to lock everybody down, and to even the shaming of people from whoever agrees with the lockdowns into locking down completely as well. It's like there's still people out there working. There's still these people deemed essential workers and whatnot, and everybody who's taking it, like who has the opportunity, I guess, because some people that are deemed essential can't stay home if they are truly afraid of it. But if you are, I don't understand why not. Obviously, the mandates, the dictates, whatever, demanding the lockdowns and stuff don't make a whole lot of sense. But in people's heads, besides the usual reasons, it's like, why don't you just stay home? Why don't you have the people that have, pre-existing conditions that could make it worse for them? Anybody who's afraid of it, take care of yourself, stay home, and let other people go about their business. Like, that makes total sense. And yet they cannot get that through their head.
Well, you're thinking with a logical brain, Nick.
But not all these people are stupid.
That's not how society works.
Not all these people are stupid. They're afraid, like you said. And
intelligent and smart are two different things.
Yeah, I know it.
Right, and intelligence is the ability to regurgitate information.
Right.
Smart is the ability to process information and come to your own conclusions.
Sure.
So you can be highly intelligent and be dumb as fuck.
That's true.
So
yeah. Well, and the other thing you were talking about, the media, controlling the fear and whatnot. I've heard from people who have had to get tests for work and, other things. They got tests before Thanksgiving and they should have had the tests back either on Thanksgiving or right before, that they're holding the tests. And the theory that they're telling me is that they're going to be holding these results, this big flush of results from like a week or so all the way through Thanksgiving until they can get all the Thanksgiving test results in as well and say, see, you guys shouldn't have gotten together for Thanksgiving. Look at this massive new amount of cases.
Yep. Actually, I saw an article this morning from in which Fauci said that Christmas lockdowns and Christmas travel restrictions will be pretty much the same as we had at Thanksgiving.
Right.
So they're already planning a month ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
But
what did Fauci just said something?
Hold on. One more quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one more quick thing on these tests. One more quick thing on tests that almost nobody is talking about. Nobody has connected COVID spread to the protests. To the protests that have been happening for the last 7 months. You know why? Because contact tracers were told specifically not to ask about people's protest activities.
That's interesting. I think it probably depends on the type of protests too, because remember when the anti-lockdown protests and whatnot were happening, and they're saying, "Oh, look at this spike in COVID cases because of the anti-lockdown protests." There's no agenda. Pay no attention.
That's what they were saying. That's what they were saying in Ohio. Ammon Bundy's about to go on trial for not wearing a mask at a high school football game. So.
I didn't hear about that. I haven't heard much about Ammon Bundy since, what was it, Easter? They had the Easter service. I think that's the last one they had in defiance of the lockdowns. What's been going on with him?
He got kicked off Facebook, a couple of social medias, but he went to a high school football game without a mask, and they said, "You've got to put on the mask," and he's like, "Constitution, blah 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 blah," and they arrested him for trespassing. So, the lady from back in May at the playground in Idaho.
Yeah.
She's about to go on trial also. Sarah something or other. I can't remember her last name.
Yeah. And she was the one in the bleachers that got arrested.
She's got. No. She allowed her kids to play at a closed playground.
Right. And then there was another lady. I don't know if she's going to be up for trial or not. But same thing, some high school or middle school sporting event that got arrested.
I think those charges were dropped. The mask lady, I think that was Tennessee.
Right. Okay. Yeah. What a just complete waste of time to take people to trial for that.
like we have. I don't know how. I'm not going to tell the whole story, but like we have a mutual friend whose other parent and guardian is sitting in a jail cell right now awaiting trial for doing something bad. But other places can have trials for people not wearing masks.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's clearly an agenda. It's just nonsense. But yeah, I don't really know what to tell people other than, stick with your guns on this one, literally and figuratively, I think we always talk about how important it is to get together with people, and we should, and as far as forming groups and whatnot, and like I was talking about with standing up to cops who are, physically blocking a business, you can't do that by yourself. You're going to get overrun. You got to outnumber them, and we do.
We outnumber them hugely. I think it's like almost like 300 to 1 civilian population to law enforcement, or 200 to 1 civilian to law enforcement in the United States.
Right.
Something like that. It's a ridiculous number.
Yeah. It's just the fear tactics there. So we were talking the other day too, when we were getting ready for the show, we were talking about Sebastian Junger, because I've been big on listening to his books, War and Tribe, lately. Very, very much enjoyed those. And then there's another one that you told me about that I have to listen to on Audible as well. But the interesting thing that I've been trying to put together was from Tribe, and it's all the data about how people come together in times of crisis, specifically war, I believe he's talking about. And there's no legislation, no bureaucracy, no government needed for things to roll smoothly. And it's interesting comparing that to this quote unquote pandemic, when, it's just interesting because this is supposedly a disaster, put out from the state, put out from media and everything. And yet it's still centrally controlled massively. And in the small pockets where people are coming together and resisting, it's working out just fine. But I'm wondering if there's going to be a tilt towards an actual disaster having to do with this, besides, the greatest transfer of wealth in human history, of course.
Well, I think the difference, the real difference between where people are standing together and where people aren't, and like this is it's an ongoing conversation around this word. And I don't mean that ethno-state bullshit version of it. I mean actual like freedom culture, right? There's in some places in this country in small pockets. There's an actual culture of freedom and liberty where people have this desire to help their fellow man and to be self-sustainable and to have little use for government.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are other places in this country where government reliance is a multi-generational program,
Mm-hmm.
you know, through welfare and all the other entitlement programs, where people call their neighbor or people call the police for somebody else's dog shitting in their yard.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Nonsense.
can you imagine that happening in Eastern Washington or
No.
Idaho?
No.
Like,
No. unless it's people from the city coming out and getting property or something out here. I had an interesting experience with that the other day. Little side note here, because it's a funny story, but I live up on a hill above a lake, and so there's a pretty gnarly dirt road with a lot of turns, and you come up that to get to my house, and I'm driving up there, and it's dusk. I have my headlights on and everything, and I see this lady up ahead just waving her arms like crazy. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I stop and ask her if she's okay. She's like, yeah, but you were going to hit me. I was like, I saw you from like 1,000 feet down the hill. What are you talking about? And just being really nasty, like, be more careful out here. And sure enough, she walks down to the bottom of the hill where a new house is being built, and she's the lady from California that bought the property and has that house. I'm like, all right, here we go.
fucking California. I'm a Californian and I hate California, so I understand completely.
Yeah, it's bad, man. No, and that stuff happens, and I think I've told the story. I can't remember. I think you heard about it too. I think you and I may have talked about it before, but it was either someone from one of the urban areas in Oregon or from California that moved to a more rural area of Oregon next to a sheep farm, and there was this huge
complain
about the dogs barking.
A big huge lawsuit about it.
Yeah, and they fucking won, and the sheep farmer was forced to get his dogs debarked, and it's like, that's what gets you in a lot of trouble living in the country. It's like, you can't be doing that to people.
Nah, you'll end up with a freaking tree falling in your driveway in the middle of the night,
if not worse. But it's just, it's ridiculous. But yeah, that attitude spreading out and, being held on to in the urban areas, I think, is just super demoralizing to the people who are trying to, keep their livelihoods, keep their businesses open, and live without fear.
Yeah, we have a government run incentive program.
Oh, Jesus.
For snitches here in my area. I'm not joking. We have a taxpayer funded incentivized snitch program in my area. Like we have what's called the Bay Area Council, and they run like the Bay Area Air Quality Management Board and a couple other things. But like we have spare the air days at the with bad smog. And you're not allowed to run like unnecessary motorized vehicles, and like the public transportation is free, and you can't use a wood stove unless it's your only source of heat, things like that. And the county has a snitch line, and they'll give you freaking like $50 gift cards for turning in your neighbor.
Jesus.
For like mowing their lawn.
Was it
or for using for running their fireplace?
Was it the beginning of all this when they had the snitch lines that were just getting bombarded with memes and dick pics and stuff until they shut down? I think it was on the East Coast. I mean, people need to keep doing that.
New York had a snitch line, and it got bombarded with dick pics.
Perfect.
Got shut down. And then there was another one out of, I want to say, Kansas City that got overwhelmed and shut down.
Yeah, see, that's great.
But they're all over the place.
Yeah. Well,
that's how it should be.
It should be, and I feel like it's I think there's more resistance now than there was at the beginning. I think the second round of shutdowns is really getting to people, more than it was in the first place. I know business owners and whatnot, it hurt them, obviously. There's so many businesses that didn't come back after the first round, and now it's pretty much life or death for them as far as their income.
It's life or death for life or death. We talked about Canada earlier in Toronto with that barbecue. There was another one out of Montreal where a 90-year-old lady chose assisted suicide over going back into another lockdown.
Yep.
Like, suicide numbers are up across the board, in the United States and in Canada. Here in California, in my county, there's an article a month and a half, 2 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, that my county had already seen twice the amount of suicides as it did all of last year. And this was like 2 or 3 months ago.
Yep. And Japan's daily death rates, I think it was Japan. They passed
Japan
COVID deaths with suicide deaths.
Yes, they had more suicide deaths than COVID deaths. They had more suicide deaths in the month of October than they had all of last year.
That's horrifying.
Oh.
It's absolutely horrifying. And it's to tie it back to what I was talking about with Sebastian Junger and people coming together, the data that shows that in times of war and struggle. Suicide drops to almost nothing. Suicide and mental health check-ins to actual facilities, that they can see the numbers of, drop to almost nothing in those times of extreme struggle when people are working together to make their community a better place. And it's the exact opposite now. I mean, what better evidence of a manufactured, struggle do you need than that? It goes against everything in the way that humans work.
Yeah, humans by nature are social creatures. We talk about in the prepper survival community, right? You go 30 minutes without air, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, 3 months without company, without human interaction. Because humans by nature are herd animals. Like we have to have human interaction for normal psychological growth and process. And when you have a lockdown like that, especially an elderly person who has a lot on their mind or whatever, and you're locking them down in a facility and you're seeing them like wave to their grandkids through a glass window or trying to hug people through a plastic sheet. There's no human connection right there.
Right.
And that has a serious toll on people's mental health, especially in today's society where we're all pharmaceutical guinea pigs in one way or another, either through the commercial food or immunizations or whatever the fuck they're spraying in the air. So, yep. I mean, people are.
Oh, that's another dark rabbit hole we can dive down is the vaccines that are coming out, the supposed 90% effective rate that also put you at higher risk for HIV. And now all these companies are saying, oh, well, we can't be held responsible for side effects and things that happen to people down the road because we're just putting out way too much of this. We'll get sued too much.
Not only can they not be held reliable, but they are federally protected against liability lawsuits.
Yep.
That was signed under Reagan.
It's just, I mean, that the vaccine courts exist and whatnot, and I'm not anti-vax. I'm pro-informed consent. But I don't really trust a vaccine with less than a year of trials with just tons and tons of listed horrible effects already. And then the companies that make it and the people that administer it are protected from that. What else do you need to say, no thanks? And of course, they're going to try to force people to get them to travel, to go back to work. That's all coming out now too.
I think it was the UK has what they call a freedom pass now, right? Where you have to get tested twice a week, and if you get negative, then you get a quote freedom pass that allows you to quote unquote live normally.
That's not surprising.
Yeah, that's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's just wild. Like you have to I don't know. It's hard to put into words how absolutely horrifying it is, not only that this is happening, but that so many people are backing it. Like, what is the end game of these people who are so incredibly pro-mask, pro-lockdown, pro-vaccine, pro all this stuff? Like, what do they want to get out of it? They think it's clearly not going to get back to any semblance of normal no matter what happens. Because that's what they say.
How many of these people were literally... How many of these people that support all these lockdowns and mandatory vaccines and things like that were literally calling Trump Hitler like a month ago?
Yeah. Well, Biden's going to come in and do all the things they want, right?
Yeah. Listen to the CDC that is run by a Trump appointee.
Yeah.
But Trump is literally Hitler and he's trying to kill people.
Yeah. Same argument with the guns.
That's not how this works.
I don't get it, man.
Same. Yeah.
It's the smart versus intelligence, I guess, but these are some serious mouth breathers. Like, it's just insane. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if libertarianism had a 13-year, 15,000-hour mandatory indoctrination program,
yeah,
we'd be pretty fucking free.
Yeah, probably.
So, but we don't.
Yeah. So are you gonna flee Cali, or are you gonna stick it out through all that?
Well, if I've wanted to leave California since I was like 12 years old, but I have my children here.
Ah, yes.
My brothers are here. My family's here. Like the to get out of California but still be close to them, like the only place I could go is Reno. And like, I don't know. If I had the money to take them all with me, we'd already be gone.
Sure. Yeah, that's the hard part. That's something, I think you probably know him, Arturo Rogaroli, on Facebook. He's really pushing a lot of that stuff, people joining up together and buying land and all that stuff. You can check out the Loyal Order of Liberty Facebook group. He's got more info there, but that's the thing I'm running into too is first of all, obviously the financial stuff, getting people together who have the money that they're willing to put into this. And second, getting people together who are willing to live near each other despite sharing a lot of the same ideas.
There's some issues with that too, though. Shane Radliff and we talked about it on Vaughn and Liberty Under Attack. If you're going to play games with nation states, right? So, if you're going to form your own community and be like, this is our community, this is our area, leave us the fuck alone, right? Well, you're still going to be living in the United States. You're still going to be living in some states. You're going to be under some sort of county authority, under a state authority, under the federal authority. And at any time, they can be like, hey, no, fuck these people over here, and come try to fuck with you.
Sure.
And if you don't have not only the ability, but the willingness to defend yourselves from that, well, then you exist at the permission of the state, right? And then you even got to go further than that. Like if you have to ask yourself, like, would you launch a nuclear weapon?
Right.
Like if it came down to it, and that was the difference between the state killing you or you being free, would you launch a nuclear weapon? And the most moral anarchists are like, no, we couldn't do that. Oh. Well, then an intertensional community is going to exist at the permission of the state.
I was going to say, how badly will your finger break trying to jab that button? I didn't know that was like, what are we nuking here?
If I could launch a nuke and be like, only hit government people, okay, right? Yeah. I mean, that's a Brandenburg v. Ohio conversation.
Yeah. I mean, they're willing to do it to us. We've talked about on the show before about Eric Swalwell telling people who are threatening civil war over gun rights and stuff, well, that's a bad idea, my friend, because we have nukes. And it comes right back around to what we talked about at the beginning. They're willing to do all this shit to you, and no one's ever willing to do it back.
Yes.
I don't get that.
Yes, and that's where the big sticking point is. in this society, we've lost in a lot of ways. We've lost our warrior spirit, our warrior culture. Like we don't really have ways for young men to be trained in these sort of things and to test their manhood and to grow up like that. Like you can join the military and they'll teach you how to fight. Brown people 12,000 miles away,
Right.
for private profit domestically. But there's no real way in our society anymore. It's actually looked down upon, and you know, with the toxic masculinity and all this other stuff, where it's negative according to most of or to the vocal part of society for you to exhume your manliness.
Right.
You know, and we've lost that. We've really lost that, and a part of that is standing up for your community and protecting your elders and taking care of people.
Well,
and we don't really have that anymore.
The other thing is too, you mentioned joining the military as a test of manhood, you know, coming of age and whatnot. But think about the actual societal tests of manhood or coming of age are healthy, and they're there to bring you into it with community backup and family backup and all that. Whereas you go through the military and then you're just dumped off, and horrible issues abound with veterans. And for anyone thinking about that or wanting to know more about that, the thing that really opened my eyes up to it, not only through friends who are veterans, but War by Sebastian Junger. Read that, because you get a really great idea of the brotherhood and the learning that you get from it and the cost that comes with it as well. If you haven't been in the military, fucking read it.
The thing that really opened my eyes to how little the government actually cares about its veterans is my brother Nick. My brother Nick served in the Army. He was in Fallujah and Ramadi, survived an IED blast, messed his leg up pretty good, messed up, you know, some head stuff, some TMIs, or TBI, not TMI, TBI. And he developed an infection a couple years ago. Like one of the screws in his knee had come loose, and it took them 8 months.
Jesus.
8 months from the initial, oh, you have a screw loose, we need to go in and fix that, until he was wheeled into the emergency room with a life-threatening infection, and they had to shove a stent into his heart to deliver antibiotics directly to his heart.
Jeez.
Because the loose screw had not been fixed.
That's nonsense.
and he almost died because of the VA made him wait 8 months. Like, government doesn't care about you.
No.
They care about what they can use you for.
Yeah, and they may try to attract
Don't join
you.
the military.
No, don't. And they may try to attract you to the military with all the ideas of becoming a man and learning all this stuff. But that's the stuff you got to remember. Keep in the back of your mind is that stuff. And then, yeah. It's terrible.
Yep.
Terrible shit. But fuck. I mean, yeah. It's the Boogaloo movement's kind of smashed. That's something that's been really bugging me since they've taken down all the you know, groups and whatnot where people were actually communicating nationally and sometimes internationally and whatnot. They've taken away not only the communication from everybody involved, but the communication from group to group on a mass scale. And I'm not even comfortable with a lot of the encrypted apps now either. Because of the backdoors I've read about, you know, and I think
if you're using a commercially available device, you're not encrypted.
Sure.
Period.
I just think that
especially if you're using an app that you downloaded from the Google Play Store.
No, exactly. I think that was a genius move on the part of the state to cut the Boogaloo communication off at the knees, because I think that would be a major way of organizing and a part of the backbone of a resistance movement during all these lockdowns and stuff.
Oh yeah, communication is key. And you notice how it happened right leading up to the election, right when Joe Biden is going to be, you know, set into office, and Joe Biden talking about assault weapons bans and mandatory buyback and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like the Boogaloo movement. I've referred to it as the modern day cyber militia movement. And that's what it is. It's not a militia movement, right? It's not the constitutional militia of that you see in the 90s and early 2000s. It's evolved, as all things do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the typical militia is Blockbuster, Boogaloo is Netflix,
right?
Or Hulu, or whatever.
Yeah.
So
it sure is fuck not Disney Plus.
That's what they did. Is fuck no. But they essentially eviscerated, they gutted the so-called Boogaloo movement right before the election.
Yep. Well,
right before Joe Biden gets into office. So I mean,
and there's
still some of us out there. But it's not anything like it was.
Right. And some of the biggest nails in the coffin, the hardest hitting, were people like Christopher Ledbetter getting taken out, and then the guys in Minnesota that got framed for supposedly wanting to sell weapons and weapon parts to Hamas, and then there's a bunch.
Hamas came out with a statement.
Yeah.
Hamas came out with a statement saying like, "Oh hell no,
yeah,
no, these guys are too extreme for us.
Yeah, we're not working with these Americans, these crazy Americans." Yeah. Well, and it's like the kidnapping plot. The people who were going to kidnap Whitmer, a person removed. Like, people knew that guy in some of the videos and pictures that got released with the anarchy symbol, who I know, and all of these. I think that one and then the Hamas thing were FBI informants and agents who were pushing people to do more and more extreme things and really ramping it up.
Yeah, I keep seeing articles about the Whitmer thing. Like every week, there's a new article about it. And yeah, the main antagonist of that was the FBI snitch.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
and then they had the main antagonist was an FBI snitch, and then like his co-signer on everything was the undercover FBI agent,
right, or
the ATF agent, whatever it was.
Yeah, government or FBI foils FBI terror plot again. Fucking classic. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what to leave people with on this episode as we come towards the end, because I'm not sure either. I'm down to get together if anybody ever wants to stand up and hold cops off of a business and keep it open. But the people I ask in my local area, nobody ever really wants to do it. They're not quite that extreme. They're not there yet.
Well, to quote the great Frank Zappa, without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible.
Mm-hmm. That's a good quote to end it on.
I'll leave my quote at that one.
Yeah. Also, before we go, tell people where they can find all your projects, because you've been dropping some good info on your main podcast as well.
Yes, I am part of Anarchy Among Friends roundtable discussion with the Inked Anarchist and Derica V American. We have our buddy Christopher. He's part of that too. But Anarchy Among Friends roundtable discussion. We're on all the major podcatchers, Anchor, Spotify, Apple's, iTunes. We actually have a 5-star rating on Apple iTunes.
Ooh, congratulations!
With 1 rating, but it's a 5-star.
Hell yeah! That's
bragging
awesome.
Point.
You can find them on Facebook too. I know that. Are you on any of the other social media sites?
No, actually, Facebook is the only place where we have Anarchy Among Friends roundtable discussion. But I am on all the other social media sites: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Float, MeWe as Jason Boothe, JASBOOTHE.
Nice, sick, dude. And are you still doing stuff with Shane over at the Vonu Cast?
Not really. That's kind of on a hiatus. Shane is doing his intentional community. He's doing his Pansnia thing. Pansnia, it's a permanent autonomous zone. And right now he's butchering goats.
Nice. So. Good for him. Yeah, I'm going to have to see if
Very
I can
good for him.
drag him out of hiatus, because I wanted to ask him about the Pansnia thing. I'm like, man, you're getting set up for a little Ruby Ridge action here, brother. You better be careful.
You know, that's one of the things. That's one of the things we talked about with intentional communities, and I think Irwin Strauss's "How to Start Your Own Country," that book.
Mm-hmm.
It has some of that in there.
Yep. Word up. Dope, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
There are options. There are.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. There are options for what?
I was just gonna say there are options. I told the story the other day. There is a Pasnia group on Twitter. Shane shares updates in there, and I was talking to some people, and I got to reminiscing, and we talked about there was an idea under Vonu in the 1970s about herding icebergs.
Oh, Jesus.
Where people would go out, use tugboats to move an iceberg to a shallow reef off the coast of Australia, and then you could harvest the melting fresh water and ship it off to the Middle East, and then harvest the off gases and then sell those everywhere. And then when the iceberg got to a point where it was no longer feasible to harvest, you just went and got another one.
Interesting. What is that accomplishing, though?
It's just nothing, but it's a good thought project.
Okay. Fucking A, man.
It's in no way feasible. It's in no way feasible.
Yeah.
But this is the shit that they were thinking of, the extreme that they were thinking of as a way to achieve personal freedom in the 1970s.
Interesting. Well, I think looking towards space is a little more exciting now than icebergs. And I think we're getting close to there, but fuck. That's a weird thing. I don't even know what to do with that. So thanks for coming on the show, man. And we'll catch everybody next time.
All right. Peace.
Beyond the Ballot is sponsored by Project Sparta. Go to projectspartacoaching.com now to learn more and get on your path to health.
Professional anarchists.
You guys are getting paid?